It's a developing story tonight. President Cyril Ramaphosa will address the country in less than 2 hours on South Africa's response to the coronavirus pandemic. As ever, speculation is swirling about what changes will be made to the terms of the national lockdown. The address is due at 8 p.m. It comes after a drop in COVID-19 cases and the start of the country's implementation study rollout of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine for health workers. Fourth quarter data from Stats SA shows that joblessness reached a record of 32.5% at the end of last year. The president says that he's been meeting with the National Coronavirus Command Council, the President's Coordinating Council and Cabinet to discuss the way forward. Speaking of discussions then, let's talk more about Ramaphosa's looming announcement. Ongama Mtimka is a political analyst joining us by Skype tonight. Ongama, always good to speak to you. So is the president in a stronger position as far as public confidence than the last time he addressed us?
Good evening, Thembi from Gqeberha, the friendly city. I think, yes, the president is in a stronger position. I don't know whether from a public perceptions perspective, but more from a policy options perspective. We see the numbers have dropped to numbers that we last saw in November in terms of daily infection rates. And that means that we've gone over the period that necessitated the stringent lockdown measures that were introduced in December. And so this comes at a time when economic data also shows that it's crucial to kind of create a leeway for a lot more activities to be permitted so that the economy can get back up on its feet again and return as much as possible to normalcy.
And that is the speculation, right, that when the president speaks at 8 p.m., we're likely to hear a further easing of the lockdown. But we're less now, just over a month away from the Easter holiday period. We know that when we had the December holiday period, infection numbers soared in the country, and you wonder about how that will be weighed up, as ever, with the economic considerations, especially on the back of the jobless data released this week.
Predictability is a crucial aspect of relating with the state as far as society and business is concerned. So and policy that is directed by science, as the president responded to SANEF on Friday, creates that room for expectation. So now that numbers have decreased, we expect that the president is going to ease the lockdown measures. Another question for me, Thembi, is that the declaration of a national state of disaster is regulated in terms of how long it can be. So I think a key question here is going to be how long the president is going to extend that national state of disaster, because it's the broad framework or broad policy framework upon which all decisions about what levels of restrictions are made. And I think for me, one of the things that are going to be crucial as a legacy, as a policy legacy beyond the pandemic, is between the State of Emergency Act as well as the National State of Disaster Act, what gets to be used. Because, I mean, if you look at the State of Emergency Act, it puts strong prescriptions on what procedures can be followed when you want to extend a state of emergency, something which has been relatively left to executive discretion entirely when it comes to the national state of disaster.
And of course, March will be a year since that first announcement of a lockdown in South Africa. Many of us had hoped it would be limited to just that 21 days, but as we've seen, we're now almost a year into it, right? There were many ups and downs, many faults, many right or correct moves taken. What is your assessment of government's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdown overall 1 year later?
I think one of the decisions I want to commend was the protection of lives and government being able and willing to take policy which was going to severely restrict economic activity pursuant to saving lives. And I think that right at the beginning, we needed to ensure that the health system in South Africa was capable of addressing the pandemic once it reaches crisis proportions in South Africa. Once we went past that phase at Thembekile, I think what became quite crucial was for government to show that they had due consideration for stakeholder interest and that they were not, dictatorially adopting policies which could plunge the economy further into crisis without showing a degree of care as to what is done in order to remedy the situation. A lot could have been done around the stimulus package to help the economy cope with COVID-19, and I think that a lot of jobs could have been precluded had government had a more bolder approach in terms of the stimulus package and also the accessibility thereof, and not perhaps use too rigid mechanisms such as the banking environment. But besides that, I think that I want to commend the collaborative approach that President Cyril Ramaphosa has used, because it lends itself actually more towards his skill set. He likes building consensus, and I think that we have gained some things here which can be a good legacy for socio-economic policy going forward as a country.
Here's the other problem, another awkward moment, if you will, for the president tonight. He speaks in a week where we were reading allegations published by Amabungane and Daily Maverick, an investigation of close aides or people around the health minister, eNCA, who are said to have improperly benefited to the tune of millions from government contracts from the health department. eNCA has welcomed a special investigation unit probe into that, as has the president. Should he speak more on that, and does it taint the overall response rather significantly?
I must declare that there's a close association here, Thembekile, in terms of my direct line of work, so upfront. But I think it's important for the president to show that he responds to allegations of corruption with as much urgency as has been shown in provinces where such allegations arose, so that these can be followed through and they can be proved whether or not there's underhandedness which had been done at the level of the politicians implicated. It's very crucial that even when allegations affect the highest echelons of power at a government or at a party level, that there is follow-through which helps to ensure that the matters are addressed expeditiously.
Ongama Mtimka, political analyst, speaking to us from Gqeberha tonight. Good to speak to you. Thank you.